Hi guys, Robboy46 here, welcome yourselves back to MotoGP 21 on the Xbox Series X. I'm doing a 100% race today around Jerez, and we're going to be going through the race results for the MotoGP we just had at the weekend. So using Fabio Quartararo, obviously we'll get into MotoGP a bit later. I did record this prior to the actual weekend itself, which is why I used Quartararo. But yeah, MotoGP back at Jerez. Obviously, back at the scene of the crime for Marc Marquez having his injury last season and putting him out for the whole season. How would he react to being back at this place? I will say, in this race, the AI get very, very crashy. And it is on 120% difficulty. But yeah, the AI are very, very bad on a full race distance around here. So yeah, you will see them literally all over the place. So yeah, we're going to go through all the categories. There you go, there's a load of crashes. The only category I won't go through is Moto E, just because I wasn't able to watch that because they didn't show it on BT Sport. So I haven't actually watched the race. But we'll start with Moto 3 and work our way through all three categories. So obviously, spoilers are ahead. If you've not watched any of the racing, then you know, you need to not watch the rest of this video because we're going to go right into all the race results and everything. So starting with Moto 3. Moto 3 kicked off in usual Moto 3 fashion, with it just been an absolutely hectic race from the get-go. Unfortunately for Brits, John McPhee failed to finish the first lap. He had a high side, and that is now 4 out of 4 races that he has got a DNF and scored 0 points. Well, he didn't have a DNF at the last race, but you know, he started from pit lane with a 10-second penalty added on top of that. So no points for John McPhee in the first 4 rounds, which is not good because he is fighting for a ride for next season. He needs, well, he has to move up to Moto 2. Unfortunately, he's not being consistent or anything, so not looking good for him. The KTMs were very, very strong around here at Jerez, very strong. Both the factory Red Bull IO KTMs and the Tech 3 KTMs. Obviously, delivery is very, very similar, just subtle differences. But all of them were inside the top 5 for most of the race. You had Dennis Onchu, who was looking very, very feisty, very aggressive. As soon as Pedro Acosta got into the lead, a little bit into the race, he didn't have the best of starts. Got beaten up a little bit, but eventually managed to fight his way through the pack and managed to get into the top 3 and then into the lead. As soon as that happened, Onchu saw who it was and just attacked immediately because he didn't want Acosta to get into a rhythm, which is what we've seen the past 2 races. Once he gets out front, he's usually able just to pull away. And obviously the rest of the pack did not want that to happen. Darren Binder as well, he obviously saw what was happening as well. He was putting some moves on Acosta just to try and stop him escaping, and it was working. There's a few riders who had to do 2 long lap penalties in the race, one of them being Jeremy Alcoba. But the stewards have basically said they can pretty much take the long laps now from like whenever they want. So Jeremy Alcoba got his out the way as soon as possible. Now that it did lose him loads of positions because obviously they're really bunched up at the beginning, but he didn't actually lose that much time, and because the pack was all together, you know, it wasn't like he was a few seconds behind a little group and then a big gap to the next group. They're all still together. So he managed to start fighting his way back through the order. Gabriel Rodrigo, he was fighting for the lead for a little bit, and then unfortunately he had a crash. Tatsuki Suzuki as well, he was in the front group or getting towards the front. Remember, he won here last year. Unfortunately he had a DNF, and so did Dennis Foggia. Dennis Foggia had a crash with only 3 laps to go, so not good for the Italian Leopard rider right towards the end of the race. But back at the front, the fight was fierce. Romano Fenati on the Husqvarna was in the battle with the KTMs. Obviously, a Husqvarna is basically just a rebadged KTM. But yeah, the KTM seemed to work better around here than the Hondas were working, and they were showing it. You know, they had real good pace. They were really aggressive, some of the overtakes, so it was yeah, looking very, very dicey, especially into this final corner, Jorge Lorenzo corner. Some of them just completely shoving up the inside of the others. But Pedro Acosta, the rookie, what an absolute rider he is. Considering he's a rookie, he's such a smart rider. He knows whereabouts he should position his bike. He knows, you know, he can kind of tell what's going to happen before it happens. So, you know, he'll either leave the door open a little bit because he knows someone's going to try and barge through, or he'll put his bike in a way that, you know, won't let someone dive up the inside. But, you know, fantastic rider. I can't believe, you know, how he's getting on this season so far. Definitely a star in the making, that is for sure. I mean, he's already a star in Moto3, but, you know, there's already talks of him maybe skipping Moto2 and going straight to MotoGP, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. We know that it took Jack Miller quite a few seasons to get to grips with MotoGP itself. But then I guess teams are worried that if he goes up to Moto2 and doesn't quite adapt quick enough, he could soon get forgotten about if he doesn't perform in Moto2. But I'm sure he would. I'm sure he'd get on fine in Moto2 as well. But yeah, so big scrap at the front. No one could break away. Riders were changing positions most corners and trying everything just to stop Acosta getting to the front and breaking away. And yeah, it was a fantastic race as always, as Moto3 always is. Moto E was actually meant to be the first race of the day, but because the track temperature was so low in the morning, they decided to move it to the afternoon, just on safety ground really. And yeah. So, yeah, Moto3 opened up the day. And, yeah, like I said, just a fantastic race. So, going into the final lap, you had Dennis Onchu, you had Darren Binder, you had Pedro Acosta, Romano Fenati, Jeremy Alcoba, who had actually managed to get his way back through the order after 2 long lap penalties. Andrea Migno as well, he had a collision with Sasaki a little bit earlier on in the race through Jorge Lorenzo corner, the final corner. Basically, Migno lost the front, managed to just about save it, had a little connection with Sasaki, and then Migno lost the rear as well. Lost both of them quite a bit of time and quite a few places, but they both managed to fight their way back through the pack. But they were fighting for the lead on the final lap, and Pedro Acosta managed to put it into the lead into Pedrosa corner, and it's a corner where he's actually been struggling to get the bike stopped. He tried that earlier on in the race, ran wide or kept running wide, and obviously people were just diving up the inside of him. But on the final corner, he'd just done it to perfection, held the inside line, took the lead, and Dennis Onchu in second place was trying everything to get back through. He basically went for a little bit of a dive bomb into Lorenzo corner, and unfortunately for him, he just completely lost it on the brakes. Luckily, did not take out Pedro Acosta. Took out here another KTM rider in the form of Joan Masia. And yeah, Masia was fighting in the front group as well, but unfortunately got taken out by Dennis Onchu's bike. And so did Darren Binder. So Darren Binder was the top Honda at the time. Unfortunately, all 3 of those went down on the final lap through the final corner, which then meant that Pedro Acosta had a clear run to the line. No one was going to be able to slipstream him to the line, and he went on to take his 3rd victory of the season and his 4th podium of the season. So 4 from 4 for podiums for Acosta. Romano Fenati picked up the pieces and took 2nd place, with Jeremy Alcoba, again, just to remind you, he had 2 long lap penalties. He got 3rd. Andrea Migno got 4th place with Sasaki in 5th. Carlos Tate, he ended up in 6th place. Toplasquier, he got 7th, just ahead of Nicolo Antonelli in 8th. Then you had Artigas in 9th, Yamanaka in 10th, Guevara 11th, Salach in 12th, Sergio Garcia in 13th, Yuki Kuni 14th, Stefano Nepa in 15th, and outside the points you had Toba in 16th, Riccardo Rossi in 17th. He had 2 long lap penalties as well, did Rossi. Isdihart, he got 18th, Koffler 19th, Dennis Onchu, after that collision at the final corner, did come home in 20th place, with Masia in 21st, Darren Binder 22nd, Felon in 23rd, and Adrian Fernandez took home 24th place. So that was the running order, or the finishing order, for Moto 3. Now we'll have a look at the actual championship itself. So with another win to Pedro Acosta's name, he's nearly on perfect points. He's got 95 points out of a possible 100, and he has got a 51 point lead already over Antonelli, who's in 2nd place, and we haven't really seen a hell of a lot from Antonelli this season. He's been, within inside the top 10, but not really, fighting for wins and such consistently. But yeah, he's actually in 2nd place. Mino is 3rd, Fanati is 4th, Masia is dropped down to 5th, Darren Binder has dropped down to 6th, Sasaki is in 7th, Gabriel Rodrigo is in 8th, and Sergio Garcia is in 9th place. So that's your top 9 for the championship in Moto 3. Now we're going to go over to Moto 2, and unfortunately, again, more heartache for Brits, as Jake Dixon had a big crash in morning warm-up, and that unfortunately resulted in him having concussion, which meant that unfortunately he wasn't able to race at Jerez. So he went to hospital and had to sit out the race itself, which is unfortunate for Jake. So hopefully it will come back strong for the next race in a couple of weeks. But yeah, Moto 2, a bit of a weird race really. Lowe's, he qualified down in like 5th position. He was on course for pole, but had a big moment during his fastest lap. Managed to do a nice good save and complete the lap, but he obviously lost a bit of time from that. You had Remy Gardner as well. He was up there. And yeah, like I said, quite a bizarre race. So from the get-go, Fabio Di Gianantonio managed to get the whole shot into the lead, and that was it. That was Digi just able to click the laps off, not make any mistakes, and just put in a decent gap over everyone else pretty quickly. And yeah, that was basically all that everyone saw of him. He just managed to escape and stay right at the front, and no one could touch him. And of course you had the likes of Raul Fernandez as well, the rookie in Moto 2. He was just behind his teammate Remy Gardner. Gardner was 2nd, Fernandez was 3rd. Those two were following each other for a little while. You had Marco Bezzecchi as well, who he was up the sharp end for a little bit. Then Sam Lowe's, he didn't get the best of starts. Lowe's not really known for his good starts in Moto 2. Did start fighting his way back through the order. Managed to get onto the back of Bezzecchi, got past Bezzecchi. Although Bezzecchi gave it a good go to fight back as well, especially down into turn 1 or up into turn 1. Bezzecchi was really good on the brakes into there and managed to get past Sam Lowe's. And then Bezzecchi tried to attack the 2 KTMs. Fernandez got past Gardner. It looked like Gardner was holding everyone up to begin with, which of course did allow Digi to escape. And yeah, then Fernandez got through, but he wasn't able to escape. Gardner was able to hold on to him. Then Bezzecchi came through on Gardner and got through into 2nd at one point as well. But then, it started chopping and changing. They had a little bit of a battle. It looked like Sam Lowe's was struggling a little bit with something. I think his rear tyre, he was lacking a bit of grip in the rear. He was sliding it through quite a lot of the corners. Made a few mistakes, but so did the others. I know that into Pedrosa corner, Bezzecchi went wide a few times, as did Remy Gardner, which then allowed Lowe's to come through. And it was a big old battle that went right down to the last few laps. And the championship was coming up on the screen, the live championship, and it was getting tighter and tighter towards the top. The more that Lowe's was making positions up, and the more that Remy Gardner was dropping positions. And at one point it was Fernandez that was going to lead the championship. And it was a good race. Quite a few DNFs. We had Bulliger, he had a DNF. Sam Lowe's teammate Augusto Fernandez had a DNF. He had a crash, and you just saw the Mark VDS bike in the background, and for a moment my heart sank because I thought it was Lowe's, but luckily it wasn't. Chantra, he had a DNF, so did Hector Garzo, he had a crash. Albert Arenas as well, obviously he's a rookie in Moto2, he had a crash. Simone Corsi, back after injury, he had a crash. And Cameron Bobier, the American, unfortunate for him, he crashed out unluckily on the final lap of the race, and he was in a bit of a battle. He was in a decent enough position, he was inside the points, but unfortunately he crashed out on the final lap, which was not good for the American. But back at the front, no one could touch Digi. He was out front, he was doing his own thing, he was doing his own lines. And obviously, he had a pretty big lead. It was over 2 seconds. So, he was just able to do things at his own pace, at his own rhythm, and not be interfered with. Whereas the guys behind were obviously chopping and changing, battling each other, trying to, outdo each other, making mistakes as well. And, they were just constantly losing time to Digi, apart from towards the end of the race, or on the last couple of laps. Digi obviously dropped his pace a little bit, just because obviously didn't want to risk a crash on the last few laps. Obviously make it home with that win, which he did. So Digi Antonio did take the win. Marco Bezzecchi actually managed to get back through the Red Bull KTMs and Sam Lowe's, and he went on to take second place. Sam Lowe's, although we thought he was done at one point in the race because he dropped back behind the second group, the pursuing group, and looked behind him at one point to see if anyone else was coming through. He dug deep towards the end of the race and managed to get the better of his championship rivals Fernandez and Gardner and take a podium. So Sam Lowe's took a good third position. Remy Gardner, he managed to secure fourth place after having a little battle with his own teammate Fernandez. Fernandez came home in fifth place. Xavi Vierge, Jake Dixon's teammate, got sixth place. Ayogura, he's a rookie as well, don't forget. Obviously, he was in Moto3 fighting for the title last season. And he went off the boil a little bit in the season and had a few disappointing races. He's suiting a Moto2 bike quite well. He ended up in 7th place, which is pretty decent for a Moto2 rookie. Obviously, I know that Fernandez two places ahead of him as a rookie, but that's a really solid performance from Ayogura. I wasn't really expecting him to go as well as he has been. Joe Roberts, another top 10 for him. He came home in 8th place. Aaron Canet was 9th and Marcel Schrotter was 10th. Then you had Marcos Ramirez in 11th, Jorge Navarro 12th, Stefano Manzi 13th, Lorenzo Baldassari on the MV Augusta in 14th, and the last point scorer was Bo Ben Snyder. And then outside the points you had Lorenzo Dalla Porta in 16th place, not really getting on too well with the Moto2 still. Hafiz Syrin 17th place, Vietti was 18th, Thomas Luthi 19th, Montella was 20th, Tony Arbolino 21st, Harder was 22nd, or Hadder, 22nd place, and Marcon was 23rd. So only 23 finishers But yeah, fantastic for Digi Antonio, and more importantly, the Grassini team. Obviously, we lost their team principal, their team boss, beginning of the year, and yeah, so Fausto Grassini obviously lost his battle at the beginning of the year, and his wife and his 2 sons have taken over management of the team. So it was quite an emotional one for the whole team and for Digi as well. But yeah, good to see them back on the top step. So in terms of the actual championship itself, Remy Gardner still leads. Sam Lowes has moved back up to 2nd place, only 3 points behind. And Raul Fernandez has dropped down to 3rd, but only 6 points behind. So 6 points separates the top 3. Marco Bezzecchi is only 13 points behind in 4th. And Digi Antonio, after that win now, is only 17 points behind in 5th. So, yeah, the top 5 are only separated by 17 points. So, really, really close at the top. Joe Roberts is 6th place, 38 points behind. Aaron Canet is 7th, 39 points behind. Then you got Xavi Vierge in 8th, who's 43 points behind. And Augusto Fernandez, who is 9th, 46 points behind. So, that's Moto 3. Now we get on to the big guns, MotoGP. The guy I'm using now, Fabio Quartararo, was on pole position. He obviously won the 2 races here last year on his Sepang Racing Petronas Yamaha, which is the reason why I used him for this race, because I thought, you know, he's got the pace, He's been good, you know, he's won 2 races this season already, and we know that he enjoys this track. So, yeah, that's why I chose him. Like I said, I recorded this before the race. I recorded this before the weekend, actually. So, that's why I decided to use Quartararo. And it was looking like I was almost going to be right, but we'll obviously get into that a little bit later. So MotoGP, the lights went out, and Jack Miller was on the front row, and you know, those Ducatis get off the line so well, and of course Jack Miller led into turn 1. He led for a little bit before Quartararo then came back past and got into the lead. Jack did try to hold on to him and obviously go with him, which he did go with him, which was fantastic for Jack, because he was then able to pull away from the riders behind and almost go into a little bit of a no man's land, where the rider ahead in Quartararo was pulling away a little bit, although the gap never really got over 1.6, so it did kind of keep Quartararo honest in that respect. But he wasn't really at the beginning, or the first half of the race, really catching Quartararo. Gap is kind of stabilised, but he was pulling away from the guys behind. And obviously, you know, Jerez isn't really a Ducati track as well. They haven't won here. I think it's Loris Capirossi 2006 or something like that. Quite a long time ago that they won around here with Ducati. So yeah, not really a Ducati track. Obviously, it's quite a twisty circuit. Not really a horsepower circuit. No long straights, so the Ducati can't really use their strengths. But yeah, there was you know, nice to see the Ducatis looking pretty strong. Alex Marquez, more misery for him. He crashed out on the first lap. Yeah, it's just gone from bad to worse for Alex Marquez. You know, we saw him get a couple of podiums last year with the Repsol Honda, but ever since he swapped to LCR, it's just not going right for him. We know he's got potential to get on the podium, but it's almost like the old Alex Marquez that we saw in Moto2 more often than not, apart from his final Moto2 season where he won the championship. We just see him crashing quite a bit, which obviously is not ideal. Marc Marquez, he had 2 huge crashes in practice and also in morning warm-up as well. Luckily, managed to walk away from both of them relatively okay. Did have to go to the hospital for a checkup just to check that right arm. But yeah, of course, he's still not where he should be in terms of like pace and that. Obviously, maybe a little bit apprehensive about this race in particular, because obviously turn 3 around here is what ended his season last year. So yeah, it's understandable that he was not really, you know, as quick as we expected him to be. Because obviously there was a lot of people saying that he's going to be stronger than Portugal. But, you know, in terms of free practice and qualifying, he wasn't. Yeah, it was always going to be a difficult weekend for Marquez. Always going to be a difficult weekend. We've seen it in the past with the likes of Lorenzo going back to Assen after having that massive crash in the wet where he broke his collarbone. He was never really the same at Assen after that. And, you know, not saying that's what's going to happen to Marquez, but it almost had that kind of look about him with this weekend in particular. It might just be for this season, but obviously we won't know until we come back here next year now. But yeah, he done all right in the race. You know, he kept his powder dry. He didn't do anything silly, and you know, obviously didn't want to risk any more crashes, because the crash that he had during free practice and that, you know, it's the first crash he's had since he's been back, and obviously no one really knew how his body was going to react to that, but it seemed to be okay. But yeah, Quartararo led for a lot of the race. And at time of recording, it hasn't actually been announced what actually went wrong. But there was one particular lap where he lost basically a whole second in the lap, and Jack Miller just started catching him hand over fist, and it looked like, for a moment, it looked like Quartararo had tyre issues, but when they showed the slow motion camera of Quartararo's tyres, they looked fine. But after the race, he looked like he was in pain. He looked exhausted, so it almost sounds like he suffered quite badly from arm pump. Again, like I said, it hasn't been confirmed at time of recording what actually happened, but obviously something happened, because once Jack Miller got past Quartararo, Fabio just dropped like an absolute stone. People were getting past him really easily, and yeah, not good. Obviously Jack Miller had arm pump surgery after the second Qatar race, in between going to Portugal. So it might be a case that Quartararo needs to have that surgery as well, if that is indeed what happened. Either that, or he had a massive moment that we didn't see, and it obviously injured him somehow. But yeah, a bit of a weird one, because he looked in control out front. It was just all of a sudden he started dropping, and he had talked throughout the weekend about the tyres around here, once they go, they kind of drop off a cliff in terms of pace. But his tyres did look fine, and like I said, after the race, it showed his onboard camera with his visor open, and he just looked in pain. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, Jack Miller did get through, and then Quartararo unfortunately started to drop back through the pack. Bagnaia was fighting with the likes of Morbidelli as well. Alicia Spargo was towards the pointy end of the group for quite a lot of the race, actually. They pretty looked good. Franco Morbidelli, obviously, he was having a much better weekend, and doing all we could. I know that Morbidelli really not happy with Yamaha at the moment. We've obviously still been on a 2019 Yamaha at the moment, which obviously he's really not happy about. He's making that very, very clear that he's not happy about that. So if Yamaha don't change that soon, then you can see Morbidelli go into a completely different manufacturer next season. Yeah, It's not looking good at the moment, but Morbidelli's definitely out to prove a point at the moment, which is good to see because he is a fantastic rider. We've seen what he can do. We've seen him win races last season. And the fact that he won, or he got second place in the championship last season, and he's still on a 2019 bike. It's just madness, absolute madness. But yeah, Nakagami as well. He was looking good as well, looking like a better weekend. Obviously, he's still not fully fit. Alex Rins had a crash earlier on in the race. Lost one of his wings as well. He did remount and rejoin the race. Brad Binder actually ended up having 2 crashes in the race. He had one fairly early on, remounted, and then a bit later on he had another crash and then obviously retired. Bastianini, the beast, he had a crash as well. He did remount, but then I think he pulled into the pit or something. But yeah, so he had a DNF. So there's actually only 3 DNFs in the actual race itself, which was Alex Marquez, the beast Bastianini, and Brad Binder. Rossi still not looking great, still complaining about rear grip, despite the fact that the rest of the Yamahas look absolutely fine with rear grip. Yeah, still outside the points, beaten by his brother as well. So don't really know what is going on there, but it's not good at the moment. He's definitely not in a good place. But back towards the front, so Quartararo just kept dropping back through the order. He was losing positions pretty much every lap, and not good to see the championship leader obviously dropping back through the order. Yeah, not good for him. He did finish inside the points, but he didn't get many. So Jack Miller, he had a decent enough lead. Bagnaia, once he got into second place, Bagnaia had a little go at trying to reel in his teammate Jack Miller. He did get the gap down to about 1 second, but then Miller was able to up the pace a little bit again and just open up that gap a little bit more. So Bagnaia ultimately was not able to catch Miller, and I think he kind of settled for second place as well. He didn't want to make a mistake like he had in the past, and throw it up the road towards the end of the race when he had a second place pretty much guaranteed in his pocket. Morbidelli, he managed to get up to 3rd position actually, top Yamaha, and that's where he stayed. So we had Jack Miller take the win from Bagnaia in 2nd place. So factory Ducati 1st and 2nd. It's been a long time since we've had that. Well, actually probably wasn't that long ago. But yeah, it's good to see. And like I said, not really a Ducati track either. So really good to see Ducati working around here. Now that they're going to go to tracks where the Ducati does work, like the likes of Mugello and Catalunya. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what they can do there. But yeah, great to see Miller take a dry win in MotoGP. Obviously, he had a win previously in dodgy conditions when he was with the Mark VDS Honda. But yeah, I guess this one will feel much better, and that he's actually beaten people in the dry as well. So good for him, good for Bagnaia, and Franco Morbidelli took the final podium position with 3rd place. Top Yamaha, like I said. Top Yamaha was Nakagami, who came home in 4th place. And when he went back to the garage, he looked like he was in pain, looked a bit emotional. Obviously, he was riding injured at Portimao after having a massive crash. But yeah, great to see him. Top Honda, 4th position. Joan Mir, the sole surviving Suzuki, came home in 5th position. Alicia Spargo on the Aprilia came home in 6th place. That Aprilia, it is starting to get there, which is good to see. I was a bit sceptical after the first couple of races, but now that they've come back to, the likes of Jerez, yeah, it seems like it's a bit more competitive. Maverick Vinales didn't have a good start. Kind of quite quiet throughout the race, actually, but managed to get up to 7th place at the end of the race. Then you had Johan Zarco came home in 8th. Obviously, he was the championship leader before Portugal, and obviously had a crash at Portugal and then lost the championship lead. He came home in 8th place. Marc Marquez, another top 10, 9th place for him, just ahead of his teammate Paulo Espargaro. Miguel Oliveira, 11th place, and you had Stefan Bradl, who was wild carding with the HRC colours. He came home in 12th. Fabio Quartararo, who led for a lot of the race, and obviously, like I said, was in pain, dropped like a stone. He came home in 13th place, so still picked up 3 points. Danilo Petrucci got 14th, and his Tech 3 KTM teammate came home in 15th place, scoring the last point, Iker Lecuona. Luca Marini was 16th, Valentino Rossi 17th, Tito Rabat was 18th, Rabat standing in for Jorge Martin. Lorenzo Savadori was 19th, and Alex Rins, who crashed and remounted with a missing wing, ended up in 20th place. So that was MotoGP for Jerez. Another year done at Jerez, and another very interesting race. Like I said, you know, the fact that I picked Quartararo halfway through the race, I thought, oh, you know, people are going to think that I have actually recorded this after the race if Quartararo does win, but no, I recorded this on Friday, and it would have been more luck than anything that Quartararo won. But, you know, it looked like he was going to, but, you know, something weird happened. I'm literally going to check Twitter now to see if there's anything in terms of news regards to what happened with Quartararo, but at the moment don't really see anything. So yeah, nothing confirmed just yet, but yeah, he definitely looked in pain. Not entirely sure what it was, whether it was arm pump or something else. I'm sure we will get something in terms of news relatively soon, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so let's look at the championship for MotoGP now. Because obviously with Quartararo only scoring 3 points, Bagnaia now leads the championship. Bagnaia is now on 66 points. He's only 2 points ahead of Quartararo, so Quartararo, yeah, he's not lost out massively. But you know what should have been a win, that definitely will hurt. So yeah, he's 2 points behind now. Bagnaia, who leads. Vinales third, he's 16 points behind, so still not completely out of it. Neither is Joan Mir, who's fourth, 17 points behind. And Zarco's still not completely out of it at the moment. You know, he's fifth, but he's only 18 points behind. And then just over a whole race win's worth behind is Jack Miller, who's launched himself up 6 places, up to 6th in the championship, 27 points behind. Then you got Alicia Spargaro in 7th, he's 31 points behind. Franco Morbidelli's jumped up 3 places to 8th, he's 33 points behind. And Alex Rins has dropped 2 places to 9th place, he's 43 points behind. So quite a lot of changes in the championship, apart from Vinales, who stays in 3rd. But you can't have any more bad results really, because you know, Mir's only literally 1 point behind Vinales now, and Zarco's only 2 points behind. So it's going to change. It's going to keep changing round by round. But that's what makes everything so interesting, and obviously makes MotoGP so unpredictable at the moment. And, you know, it will be interesting to see if and when Marquez does kind of start getting back towards the form we know he has. Whether he'll find it better in the next few races at the likes of Le Mans and stuff like that, we'll have to wait and see. Because maybe it was playing on his mind a little bit about this place and what happened a year ago at turn 3. And after having, you know, a couple of big crashes, like I said, throughout the weekend, yeah, it must have been playing on his mind a bit. But even just watching him racing, you can see he hasn't got that aggression because he can't put his body in the positions that he wants to, because, you know, his right arm is not able to do things that he needs it to do to be able to do what he wants to do, basically. So I think things will eventually start getting easier, but I don't think it's going to be all of a sudden. I think he's just going to have to kind of like chip away at it and just keep working. I mean, the more and more he uses that arm, the more and more the muscle's going to build back up. And obviously things will start to get a little bit easier for him. But yeah, it is still, you know, a bit of a concern at the moment. And obviously he doesn't want to risk having big crashes and, you know, risk re-injuring that right arm, because that could be a disaster. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And like I said, we'll have to wait and see what Quartararo says was his problem throughout this race, because he was looking like he was on course for a win, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, he just dropped back and was in pain at the end of the race. And yeah, not good to see. Otherwise, I think obviously if he hadn't have had that problem, I think he definitely would have won. But fair play to Jack Miller. You know, he rode really well, and you know, Quartararo didn't have a massive lead. It was like 1.6 seconds. So Miller was keeping him honest, and you know, Bagnaia had come through as well. So fair play to the factory Ducati team. They done really well, and it's good to see them back on the top step. So that was MotoGP, Moto2 and Moto3 from Jerez. I've just finished, or just finishing, the race with a big wheelie. Literally, I think just 2 of us finished. Everyone else crashed, and yeah, there we go. Literally just 2 of us finished, and I'd already lapped Petrucci as well. Lapped him twice. So not good for the AI around here on 100% race distance. But anyway, guys, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more content. I shall see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to stay safe, wash your hands, and look after yourselves. I'll see you guys next time. See you.
Here we are then for the podium ceremony, and it's been a weekend where everyone gave their all, but today these riders have shown they had that little bit extra in the locker. The crowd is going wild, and finally they can enjoy this deserved moment of glory.